Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today we will orchestrate fourth orchestral texture between woodwinds, harp, percussion and string section. Okay, let's listen to original piano version of the melody. As you see, there are three-line progression in these 8 bars fraction: melody, harmony and bass lines. Today I want to add more passionate character to our orchestration. Therefore, I'm thinking to give the melody to first violins. So, we decided about the melody. Now is the time for other lines. Let's start from the bass line. I have two instruments for this. They will support the harmony. Okay, I give the bass line to cellos. I'm adding pizzicato technique, but you can produce it with short notes. It is my choice. There's a harp in my texture which has plucked sounding and it blends very well when the contrabasses or cellos play with pizzicato technique. The dynamic marking is piano. For reinforcing the bass line, I use contrabasses, which will play an octave lower than cellos. I'm adding pizzicato technique. The dynamic marking is piano. Now let's move to orchestrate the harmony line. Today I will show you very easy and simple orchestration technique. I will use more figures for orchestration the harmony line. So let's start from the first figure. Look at it carefully. I have three unpitched eighths figure and three notes A, D, F. We have to get more figures from the figure we have. In order to clearly thinking, you have to forget how is given the harmony in the piano score. Just look at the notes as an individual and without any length. In our case, there are only three notes A, D, F. Then let's add these notes onto our figure. Now we get our first transformed figure. I give this figure to harp. I'm adding slur because I need legato sounding. The dynamic marking is piano. Let's move to next figure. I want to use only middle note of this transformed figure because I'm looking for how to reach the combination of harp and the bass line. Okay, I take only the D note from my figure, but you can use D and F as together in your own score. In my case, I don't hinder to harp sound, hence I use it delicately. This figure should be sound as plucked, therefore I give it to second violin's pizzicato. The dynamic marking is piano. Let's move to next figure. For these ones, I want to take the dotted quadrat note figure. Why I choose this figure? Look at the score. The harmony and the bass line are played with plucked techniques. Sounding is very short and dry. I have to smooth this sounding with sustained notes. As we see, there is a place between bass and the harmony lines which we could feel it. I have advised to my students, when you need to fill the score with sustained chords, do it correctly. All your hard work is to get clear sounding of the main melody. You can share sustained chord between melody, above the melody, or below the melody, regardless of how to give in the piano score. Because composer couldn't present all of his orchestral ideas in the piano score depending on piano playing techniques. For example, composer couldn't take the harmony as wide in 5 octaves, but orchestra could do it. So, conclusion. Choose the right place in registers and the right instruments for harmony. Don't conflict it with the melody. Melody always should shine between the orchestra. In our case, melody will be taken by first violins in the high range. For these ones, I prefer to shade it above the bass line because I want to keep the place below the melody for ornaments. So, I'm feeling the place by violas between cellos and the second violins. There is no general rule how to transform the harmony, but I want to talk about my experience in wild notation. So our first chord is in D minor. We have high D in second violins and a low D in the cellos. We need F and A notes. I'm writing divisi, which means 6 players will play A note, other 6 players F note. Second bar in A minor. A note remains unchanged, F note moves to E. I'm adding slur, which means all 2 bars will be played on the one bow stroke. Third and the fourth bars are the same of first and second bar. Fifth bar is in B flat major. We have high D in second violins and low B flat in the cellos. We need F and B flat notes. Sixth bar is F major 7. Second violins take high C, cellos take low F. In this bar I want a little progression, therefore I'm writing F and A, then move them to E and C. Our seventh bar is in G minor 7. I'm writing G and B flat, then B flat remains unchanged, but G note moved to F. Last bar is in A minor, so I'm adding E and A notes. Okay, violas are completed. It is my taste. You could feel it by other ways. I'm adding the melody line, so our basic orchestration is completed. Now I want to talk about how is the principle of orchestration and how I do it in my own scores. The orchestration looks like to drink a tea. If you want to drink, firstly you should have a cup, but will be better to drink it with expensive cup, which has more ornaments. For best orchestration, firstly you should orchestrate the basic, which could be played. Then you can add your own ornaments to your score. So these ornaments will show how is your mastering ability. We have finished our basic orchestration. Now is the time adding ornaments. For this, I will use only 2 figures. Let's start from first. Our first figure is 3/8 figure, which we used it for harp and for second violins. Now I want to use it for wind section. Of course, we can give this figure to each instrument, but I don't prefer to use doubling if I have chance to transform it. Let's follow me. I will use chain method, which I told in our earlier lectures. This method is very useful to maximize the material. I'm dividing this figure to 3 rings. Our first ring is A and D. For getting new ring, I'm using chain method. So our next ring is D and F. Let's create one more, F and A. Good, now we get new 3 figures from one figure. Let's share our figures between instruments in the partitioning step. I want to give these figures to bassoon, English horn and 2 oboes. There's a question why I share it between these instruments. Answer is simple. Vocal section divide in 2 groups depending its sound character. First group are consist of contrabassoon, bassoon, English horn and oboe. These instruments are similar to each other in sounding. Second group are consist of bass clarinet, B flat clarinet, flute and piccolo. And these instruments are similar to each other depending its sounding. Now we have 2 choices, first group and second group. I prefer first group because I have other figure in my mind for second group. and they will play more difficult figure than this. Okay, let's analyze first group. The low notes of our chords are possible in contrabassoon, but middle notes are not. We couldn't give first ring to contrabassoon. Our first ring is possible in bassoon, second in English horn, third in oboe. So let's start from bassoon. I'm adding slur, which means player should play it in one breath. The dynamic marking is piano. Only first player will play in this score. Now is the time for second ring. As we said, we give it to English horn. The English horn also will play legato. The dynamic marking is piano. Our third ring is for oboe. Second oboe take F and A notes. I'm adding slur, which means legato. For short end, I'm adding staccato. Our third ring is completed, but I also want to hear first oboe. It is my choice. For first oboe, I'm writing above A and C. If you don't need two oboes, you'd better to write on lower notes for one oboe. The dynamic marking is piano. Now is the time to add one more figure to our score. Okay, let's do it. I need a little drive for score. Therefore, I'm choosing 3/16 triplets. I'm adding the harmony onto this figure in transforming step. I give this figure to in B flat clarinet because it will play smoothly. I'm adding slur. A2 means two clarinets will play in unison. I need it because I want to hear more loud sound than other instruments. The dynamic marking is piano. Our next figure is the same of clarinet's figure, but flute will take it an octave higher than clarinets. I'm adding slur and A2. The dynamic marking is piano. Our last ornament is for glockenspiel. I'm choosing one quarter note with res for this instrument. It will accentuate the melody. Before starting to notation, I would like to talk about this instrument. Glockenspiel is pitched percussion instrument, which means has a definite pitch and could play the melody. This instrument has a range from G5 to C8. Glockenspiel sounds 2 octaves higher than rhythm. There are many types of glockenspiel in the different orchestra. F5 C8, G5 C8, C5 A8, F5 D8. But for safety you should write for G5 and C8. Now move to notation. I'm writing D4, but it will sound D6. The dynamic marking is piano. I'm using this instrument to accentuate the melody. So, the orchestration of bass and the harmony lines are completed. Now we can add the melody onto score. As I said, it will perform by first violins. I have to change the slur for bowing technique. For this technique, I have asked the violin performer how to write correctly. He told me that this chord could play with different slur, but I prefer this. So I have a recommendation to my students. You'd better show the score to violin performer and ask how to write slur. Don't hesitate. The dynamic marking is mesophoto. So our fourth orchestral texture is completed. Thanks for watching. See you soon.